I know you've been doing a lot of coverage of the Trump criminal trial. We just played a clip of Marjorie Taylor Greene in the government oversight committee, which is ostensibly trying to subpoena or hold into contempt Merrick Garland for not releasing the special prosecutor's tape where he interviewed Joe Biden to prove that he's old or something. I don't know exactly what that was supposed to do. But Marjorie Taylor Greene took the opportunity to essentially audition. She was mad that she was left off the travel team to go and sit out in front of Donald Trump's courtroom and essentially go around the gag order. And she was trying to prove that she could do it better than Mike Johnson. She was very pissed that Mike Johnson was there. And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and so I just give us what you've got on this trial, because for me the funniest part was that they seem to be dressing like Donald Trump in some type of like way to indicate that they're going around the gag order.
Well, I didn't necessarily know that it was a way to go around the gag order, but which of course is what they're doing. But it's also, it's just, this is the uniform now, apparently. All they need is a red hat to really bring the whole thing off. It was stunning to see them all dressed in that blue suit with the red, with, the standard Trump outfit costume, apparently. I guess we all know what we're going as on Halloween. This whole thing of them traipsing down there, I actually called this ahead of time. I'm shocked. I'm not usually very good at predicting anything, but I did predict that when Rick Scott turned up, well, actually it was prior to that, Trump was whining to anybody who would listen about the fact that there were nobody was showing up to support him. And that includes the supporter, any protesters. And in fact, he's been lying and going out there and saying they're all here, but they won't let them in. But they're being left out because there's nobody there. I mean, there's 2 or 3 cranks with a Trump flag, and that's about it. And so he was upset, and he was saying that he wasn't getting enough support, and he wasn't getting enough support, political support. He felt like people had not really stepped up. This was all in the shadow of that big fundraiser that he had down in Mar-a-Lago where he called up had all the VP wannabes, contenders show up in front of a bunch of rich donors, and he paraded them around like it was the Miss USA pageant.
I was going to ask, did they have to wear bathing suits?
Thank God that was not required, because I don't think anybody wants to see that.
There's still time. There's still time.
There's still time. Yes, he hasn't picked yet. I mean, there's still going to be one more event. But so he had them all down there, and they were all doing their best Mike Pence impressions. And so when Rick Scott showed up, I'm going, oh, they've heard the call. And he showed up last week, and I said, well, just watch. All the VP wannabes are going to be here next week. They're all going to show up. And lo and behold, they did. And you had, Doug Burgum, the North Dakota.
Put the picture. You can see them. They're all, look
at it.
Mike Johnson, to his credit, is wearing a red and blue tie.
Right.
Instead of just a red tie. But look at the Vivek. And who was that? Donald's? And
that's Donald's, Burgum, Vivek, and then Corey Mills, a rep from Florida.
Corey Mills, they're all wearing the Donald Trump outfit. It's just bizarro.
It is weird.
And Jimmy Vance did the same thing too when he was there.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. And in fact, they've even admitted, I can't remember who said it, but I read somewhere, one of them said, yes, well, we're doing this to show solidarity with Donald Trump. I mean, it's twisted. These are U.S. senators that we're talking about. Well, I mean, Corey Mills and Donald's are congressmen, but that's even so. I mean, these are national elected officials.
Well, they're adults too.
Supposedly. Yeah, they're adults. Yeah, supposedly.
That seems to be the bar for me.
Yeah. Well, that's about as, I guess that's as much as we could hope for, that they would know how to dress themselves personally. Matt Gaetz showed up. He did the same thing. yesterday. They have come down there with the intention. There are two parts to this. Three. The first is the VP wannabes, led by J.D. Vance, and Doug Burgum came down there. And, Tim Scott's going to have to really step it up here because he's been missing the boat. I'm sure he'll be there on Monday to show their solidarity and to sit behind Trump. Now, keep in mind that in a normal trial, the people sitting behind the defendant would be the family. But that's not really happening because it's such a disgusting trial and Melania is nowhere to be found. And the only kid that's turned up, isn't that funny? She didn't. But, even in a normal trial, honestly, in a normal trial, even someone who is accused of something like this, I mean, they come out for serial killers. They come out for accused rapists. The family will come and sit behind them. And the defense attorneys normally really want them to do it, much less a defendant who's running for president. You would think that the family would just stand up behind him and say, this is a witch hunt and we're here for our father, but no, or our husband. But no, they're not. Eric's the only one who's shown up, and he's usually hanging around with the VP wannabes and the rest of the sycophants. And so that's part of it, is what they're showing up for is to show support, sitting behind him in the courtroom, that as if they are his family. They're his cult. They're not his family, but close enough for Trump. So they're coming for that. They're also coming to do the audition for the VP and to see how stridently they can support Donald Trump. J.D. Vance came out and said, well, I'm just here as a friend. We're here as friends. We're here as people who support Donald Trump in his time of need. And then, of course, the big reason that they're there, and really the one that is just most stunning that they're actually doing it, is to, do a end run around the gag order. They are saying out loud all the things that Trump is not allowed to say. And it's pretty grotesque what they're saying because, Trump and the rest of them, it's a witch hunt. It's, the prosecutor's crooked. The judge is, in the tank, whatever. They've actually gone out there and insulted the jury. They've gone out there and they have gone absolutely overboard on condemning the judge's daughter. I mean, they're going after his family in a way that is really pretty stunning. And that includes Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who, to show his individuality and belief in personal freedom, he wore a blue and red tie instead of a red tie because he's special. He's important. Yeah, he's an important guy. And he was he went gangbusters after the judge's daughter. And they're all making a fake claim that she's making millions of dollars as a lobbyist or something. That's which isn't true. So this is what
to be
they're
fair
doing.
to Johnson. Trump did basically intervene on his behalf with Marjorie Taylor Greene on the vote to boot him essentially and to vacate. And this is you really couldn't write a. And I feel like maybe there has been some writers, and I'm thinking I can't remember the name of that guy, but the Magic Christian or something like that. The guy who wrote that, this type of thing where you would have all of these politicians show up dressing like you. I mean, this is this is like the way that you would write it in a sort of satirical fashion. These authoritarians.
Exactly. Terry Southern or somebody like that, one of those guys, the true satire, it's quite unbelievable. And even I, with all of my cynicism and I have have absolutely no doubt that the right is at this point, that the Republican Party is capable of anything. Even that even surprised me, because I have to say that when they wore the outfits and you see these pictures, the picture that you put up there was, and by the way, that particular picture, this is a thing that they do. Apparently, they all show up. They go into a holding room with Donald Trump. They come into a different, all these politicians come into a different door than the public does. So it's not like they're a member of the public. They come in, and then they all, as they're going into the courtroom, Donald Trump comes out and he stands in the hallway and he makes some ridiculous statement, and they all line up behind him every morning, standing there. And it's creepy, it's kind of like this weird, it's very creepy. In fact, some movie the other day, it was, I can't think of the name of it. It's some horror movie that they've got out. They were doing some viral promotion, and they showed up in the protest zone, and they're like monsters, and they have these strange like sheets, hoods over their head and stuff like that, and they're sort of standing there in a line in the background at the protest. I thought it was pretty clever because people were going, "What the hell is that?" That's what these guys are like. They're like zombies standing behind there. It's very bizarre, and of course, it's just the blatant just degradation of any sense of adherence to the rule of law or any of the normal rituals that usually go around something as serious as a criminal trial. I mean, it's serious, and I get. I mean, they'll do the same, and if there's ever a federal trial or there's the Mar-a-Lago espionage, documents trial, if those were going on, they do the same thing. By the way, this doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it's the New York hush money trial. This is just defending Donald Trump, no matter what, and subverting the gag order that he is under so that they can go and basically threaten witnesses and threaten the judge's family and the jurors. And that is just sick. I mean, it's really sick. And these guys are all, I shouldn't say guys, there's some women there too. Lauren Boebert made quite a show.
Did Boebert show up
yesterday.
there? Was she?
Oh yeah, she was there.
Marjorie Taylor Greene must be enraged.
She must be so upset. And I think you're right. I hadn't even thought of that last night, that it was it was, hey, remember me? I know how to bring it.
Oh, 100%.
Don't you want me there?
She had gone on with Bannon 2 days ago and said, like, what's Mike Johnson doing there? That's a city, that's a municipal case. We can stop the Jack Smith thing. That's a federal one. He should be back down here doing it. And then all of a sudden she's bringing up in that committee about the judge's daughter. Yeah. And that's what she was doing. That was just like, somebody clip this and send this to Trump, and maybe she'll get there on Monday. I wouldn't be more surprised. Of these clowns, all again.
I mean, look at them.
And
so it's Anna Paulina Luna, Andy Ogles from Tennessee, Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs from Arizona, and then Eli Crane from Arizona, and Boebert's right next to him. There's one more behind Biggs. I just don't recognize him.
I wonder, Mike Pompeo was down at Liberty University, giving a speech. Maybe we have a clip of that. Do we have a clip of that? He wasn't there, but he's trying to, I think, get back into the running. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Here's Mike Pompeo, who apparently is in contention for another job in the next Trump administration, if there is one. God help us. And here he is at Liberty University, just so that we can catch up on some of the band is trying to get back together.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got the Wegovny going on, or the Ozempic. That's going around in those circles. Here he is.
I made two decisions in my life as a young person that changed it forever. First was enrolling at West Point and being lucky enough to get in. And the second one happened at West Point as well. It's where I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And we are particularly great because our founding principles, the things that makes this nation unique, are tied to fundamental Judeo-Christian truths that you all know and are living out. And it's for this reason that our country will always be under assault by dark forces that seek to tear us down. We can see this. You all are going to come into a world where Russia and China and Iran, they're all eager to chip away at our Judeo-Christian founding. They want to see an America in decline. They want to destroy the very freedoms that we are celebrating here today. And they want to drive our nation away from the Lord. We can never let that happen.
Okay, I mean, I bring that up only because when you've got a top national security contestant who's talking about this country is all about protecting our Judeo-Christian values from the dark forces. At least he was kind enough to throw in Russia, China into the Iran in there, but of course there's a reason why he's talking like that as stuff is going on in Gaza and Israel, and making it clear where he's going to stand on these issues.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah.
But the Christian nationalism that is tied into this is Mike Johnson is up there, and the Democrats saved him. I get, was it the beginning of this week or was it last week? From the motion to vacate. And I think they did so because probably as payoff from the debt deal on some level. But this is a very scary time when you've got like a crew of authoritarians going down to protest essentially out in front of this criminal case. And the sort of like convergence of Christian nationalism around these clear authoritarians. Give me your sense of like, what are the implications of this case really ultimately? I mean, we dip into it, but we don't follow it that much because my feeling is that he's not going to go to jail. If he gets convicted, he's going to be out on bail for a while, and they're not going to put him in jail before then. He's figured out a way to avoid jail with the gag order. How much do you think this is going to implicate the election, if at all, regardless of what happens?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, look, first of all, it's hard to believe that it wouldn't, because, this is a criminal trial. If he's convicted, the idea that the Republican candidate for president is a convicted felon would be kind of a shocking, unprecedented sort of development. But then what isn't when it comes to Donald Trump?
Right.
So I don't hold out any hope that this suddenly that, the country will be shocked into reality and go, oh my God, this is terrible. We can't do that. So I don't know about that. I do think there's a possibility, and this is just from what we're seeing, not in the polling, because the polling, I don't even, pay that much attention to it at this point, but the elections that we've had, the primary elections that we've had over the course of the last few months, and the special elections that have happened this year in 2023, show that there is a group of people who are leery of Donald Trump. Now, they are people who...
You're talking about the Republican primaries.
The Republican primaries. Yeah.
The other day was it in Maryland?
Maryland.
I mean, she got something like 20% of the vote. She wasn't even on the ballot.
No,
I think
it was a closed primary. So the idea that these are Democrats, or that the Democrats are meddling in the primaries. I mean, they could be in some states, but this is across the board. I mean, even a place like Nebraska, that she is getting in, high double digits, or rather, double digits. And that is surprising to me at this point, because we're dealing with Donald Trump. Now, any normal, you might sort of dismiss that if it was normal politics, where there's a disagreement over some kind of a policy, or there's some kind of a protest vote against Donald Trump because of some, or there was another candidate that they just really loved, like in 1980 with, Ted Kennedy, that there was a group of people who just fanatically loved the alternative. But that's not really the case with this. This is just, Nikki Haley, nobody loved Nikki Haley. She was just the last person standing, and she's the one who got the votes of the people who who weren't happy with Donald Trump. So just, not to belabor that, but it tells me something is within the Republican coalition, that there is a possibility of some people on the margins shaking loose because of what's happening with the trial, and the idea that, you're seeing these guys traipse down there in their little red tie uniforms, and that, that the cult of Donald Trump, which of course encompasses most of the Republican Party and apparently the entire Republican establishment now, it is completely on board with this, that there may be some people around the edges who might be affected by a conviction. What I wonder is what happens if he is acquitted, or if there's a mistrial. And that's certainly possible. This case, anything can happen in any case. If it was, a slam dunk, you probably wouldn't even have a trial, right? It would just be a guilty plea or something. But, there's a good possibility that he'll be acquitted here. or that they'll split the baby and decide that the case is really a misdemeanor and the felonies don't matter, or there might be a mistrial. There could be one or two people on there that just go, nah, I'm not really buying it. So when that happens, I am really wondering what goes on there, because it should, you would think would, galvanize the left, or the Democrats. I shouldn't call it the left, but the Democrats. I just wonder if it will just, it'll be so enervating to see him get away with it one more time that people will just kind of throw up their hands and go, what is the point here? Why am I bothering?
Well,
I worry about that.
I guess my feeling is I don't know. I think I don't think it's going to have that impact. I mean, because on some level, like, there is nothing that we can do. I mean, this is why I don't really spend too much time covering it, because it's really up to the judge and jury at this point, and sort of like some sensibility outside of the fact. I mean, the guy's obviously guilty of fraud here. I mean, it's obvious.
Of course.
And
he's also guilty of being completely unfit to be president of the United States. And this just, we know that, but this, now it's in a formal legal setting, where this stuff that he did, this is the guy who came out and has called the media fake news from the moment that he came down that escalator. Fake news, fake news. This trial has proved that he and a tabloid gossip monger, David Pecker, the head of the National Enquirer, the publisher, actually created fake news.
Yes,
they put together fake stories about his rivals and put them in the newspaper. That is fake news. I mean, to me,
that's like the Ted Cruz. You're talking about, like Ted Cruz's
Ted
dad,
Cruz, Marco Rubio was in a pool with a bunch of guys doing drugs, apparently. And of course, Hillary Clinton, that went on for months. This was literally fake news that they concocted. And Pecker, he testified to that. Michael Cohen did. They put those stories together. Trump was thrilled. And, let's do the Lee Harvey Oswald thing, with Ted Cruz. And here's this guy who said fake news. So, I mean, that kind of thing, I know it's all baked in, and we've seen this guy for years, and nothing new under the sun. But still, it's something to see in a formal setting, that being, brought out under oath with people are actually testifying, in front of a judge.